Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Can we call to order, please?
Chairperson Melinda Jordan.
Absent.
Vice Chairperson Dan Meester.
Here.
Board Member Malcolm Dean.
Here.
Board Member Steve Shook.
Here.
Board Member Matt Gibson.
Here.
Board Member Carl Schilling.
Here.
Board Member Tara Menza. Here. You have a forum.
Great. So public is invited to be heard. You have 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address. Yeah, realize that you got an amateur running this board here.
I can speak loudly if you wish.
Oh, I see. It's like
It'd be nice if we got you on the record.
oh, it's in the queuing system. Yeah.
What? Well, cue me up. Cue me up. I'm
Boy,
ready.
Sandy
You
doesn't
want me to sit down here?
Yeah, you could try that. Let's try that one. Yep, that's all in the queuing
So on
system.
the queuing system.
Yeah, how about you, Levi?
Let's see. No, I got a green flashing light.
Here, wait, I have to.
Can Dan cue me?
Wait. Well, we want it for the recording, is the thing,
Oh.
because you want to be on the record, right?
You would need to cue me?
You could.
I could if I could see you, but
You gotta be able to figure it
yeah, I've got to be able to.
How
I gotta
about
be able
this
to see
one?
you
Check
first.
1, 2.
There you go, check one, two.
That'll work.
Check 1, 2. Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording.
Good evening, Airport Advisory Board members. Scott Store, 229 Grant Street. Hey, I was looking at your agenda for tonight, and you got, what, 6 items on there on the agenda, and then I was looking at the packet. A couple of weeks ago, you guys requested some information about the budget, and you received the information about the budget within your packet. I think that's a really good start. I think you guys should request some more information, because the 6 items that you're talking about tonight don't have any reference points within your packet. You're lacking a lot of information. The airport has an airport monitoring system, AMS, that provides a lot of information that could be relevant to your decision-making abilities as a board. And I would request that those items be put in your packet, whether it be number of landings, types of aircraft, how many aircraft actually stayed more than an hour, how many aircraft were based out of here, what was our visitor count. All of that stuff is relevant to you guys making actually intelligent and good decisions about this airport moving forward. Obviously, I'm up here speaking from a community standpoint, and you hear me talking about all kinds of things as far as accountability for the airport. It kind of starts with you guys asking the right questions. With understanding what we've got for the airport. I would expect that each one of you has read all of the FAA obligations that we have to abide by when we take grant money. If you don't understand those, please read that. Take time to educate yourselves. You guys are supposed to be the experts here. I don't want to be the only one reading this stuff. And we all live in this town. Let's try to figure out how this airport can serve the community and get away from abusing it. It's not just about increasing the number of flights. It's about actually having the airport that's useful to the community, not just useful to aviation in general. I appreciate your time. Thank you for all your efforts.
Oh, thank you.
They're gonna drop the mic.
Anyone else? Should note that Representative Popkin joined us at 6:03. Welcome. Okay. There being nobody else, let's move on to the next item, which is approval of the November 2025 minutes. Anyone have any modifications? You should be on.
Is it on? No, it's not on.
Not ready.
Gotta press the mic.
Hold on.
No, you have to turn it red.
C2. My God.
You only gotta press it once. Mic on.
The fact that these are in queue means something may be wrong too.
There you go.
Oh, okay, there we go.
All right.
Yay,
All right.
you did it. Page 4, line 5, it says board member Shook, seconded by board member Menza to make a recommendation. I think we just need to add that there was a motion made.
Agreed. Can I get a motion to approve? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second to approve that.
Okay, we have a second. Motion is approved. So then we move on to updates from the airport manager, Levi.
Almost.
Right, can you hear me? All right, here we go. Quick updates today, not too much. Mostly building on kind of what's been going on and from updates from last month's meeting. Just real quick informational thing, AWAS continues to be out, and that's struggles with the FAA and maintenance getting parts in. That is moving forward with, though, as quickly as possible. Voluntary noise abatement meetings did occur on November 24th. I knew that I spoke last time that was going to occur. Really great turnout. This time, for the first time, we're having FAA participation. So that was really great to see the FAA actually there also. So now we've got airports, the local flight schools, and the FAA showing up to those meetings. That's really good. I guess I kind of skipped forward there. We also got a noise abatement section, but that was in my update section also. Also, Big 5 meetings occurred last week. Big 5 meetings are the top 5 airports in Colorado as identified by the Colorado Department of Transportation. So that would be Centennial, Erie, Longmont, Boulder, and Rocky Mountain Metro. We had our kind of meeting also. We had the voluntary noise abatement meeting, and we also have the management meeting. Along with many other things, we also touched base on noise abatement during that meeting also. Those meetings went really great. Everyone attended, which was great because usually at least one airport's missing from that meeting, so it was really great to see all the airports at that meeting.
Levi, when you say top 5, I would assume that means anything that's class D or below.
No, actually, it's an interesting system. It was picked by, to my understanding, I think it was the Colorado Department of Transportation with some input from the Colorado legislature. It's the top 5 airports in Colorado as far as traffic, as far as operations and stuff like that go. So we've been meeting because that's the only airports to which House Bill 1235 really relates to, which is the legislation that passed last year, which relates to noise abatement plans, et cetera, fuel transition plans, stuff like that. So we meet periodically to kind of discuss issues that concern us. And that rolls right into my last item for update, which fuel transition plan. I submitted for review to Colorado Department of Transportation a very draft fuel transition plan on November 17th. My hope was, by that point in time, they'd give me back to me comments so I could take it to this board. They, as of yet, have not gotten comments back to me. So that's still in the draft form. That plan is due, supposedly, on January 1st. We should be in good position having submitted it so early. Hopefully we can get some pointers back from CDOT so we can have a final draft of that to move forward with. That was most of what was in my update. Is there any questions on any of those items?
Your mic was hot for a moment. Trying.
There we go. There we go. Did anyone else from the board have questions before I go? I don't need to start this off. I'll keep mine on so we don't have a mess up, but if you want to let board member Menza speak first.
Yeah. Really quickly, excuse me, Levi, the AWAS being out, is there any kind of secondary effect that we need to be worried about with the AWAS still out?
Not necessarily.
Is it creating any issues at the airport?
No, it's not really creating any issues. The AWAS, of course, is a nicety, a major nicety, which is very nice to have and improves safety. It's nothing regulatory that we have to worry about, and I'm working very closely with both the FAA and the maintenance personnel to make sure we get it fixed as soon as we can.
And there's notifications out for the pilots?
Yep, there is.
Okay. And then when you talked about the noise abatement meeting on November 24th, FAA participation, did they give a presentation about noise abatement?
No,
or they
were
were just there to
part of the
answer?
conversation. Von Hansen from the Flight Standard District Office was there, which was tremendous. He is also the individual tasked with essentially oversight of the flight schools. Pilot operations, specifically one of his things is oversight of flight school, so it was great having him there. Not all-encompassing representative of the FAA, but a very good representation for the meeting that was there.
Was there any direction given to the flight schools that they weren't already doing?
From
per
the
se?
FAA, is that what you mean? And it's not specifically, and again, their role wasn't there to give direction. Their role was to participate in the discussions and in the information.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
Great. Okay.
I can't, I can't push my own microphone without disconnecting you for some reason. So I'll go silent as soon as I ask a question and then cue you back up. It's kind of a redundant question, but the dial-in for the AWAS, non-functioning AWAS, the non-functioning dial-in for the non-functioning AWAS, is there a plan in the future to
That's part of the whole
address that?
conversation. That's kind of the beginning of all of this. So since since June now, I've been fighting with what's going on with the dial-in to it. So to give you a little bit of history on it, our AWAS is rather old. It was originally put in with a landline, and now both the maintenance personnel for the AWAS and the phone company does not want to deal with that landline. They're essentially phasing them all out, that type that's there. So they essentially do not have the resources to maintain it the way it was being built. This kind of creates an issue. With all things FAA, things must be approved very specifically. So our maintenance personnel wanted to put a cell phone converter onto that. So essentially it turns it into a cell phone out there. Still connects to the phone system. But they have to have the FAA sign off for that. So they've been going back and forth with the FAA on what they can do legally, what they can't do legally as far as equipment goes. The hope was that when we finally got our annual inspection, which they had been pushing off until they got a solution that we could get this all fixed at one time, they went out there to do the annual inspection and a couple other pieces of equipment didn't pass standard, which means they had to order parts and take it offline. So now we're waiting for those parts to come in so they can come back in and they can fix the whole thing at the same time, hopefully.
No comment.
I have a comment. Do we have a functioning AWAS?
We do not have an AWAS which is functioning within the parameters as defined by the Federal Aviation Administration. And ergo, we cannot broadcast it, so we must take it off.
So according to the FAA, we have a non-functioning AWAS.
It is currently has been taken offline and NODAMed as inoperational.
Can you answer, so do we have a functioning FAA approved AWAS?
We have, it has been taken offline.
So that would be a no.
No.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to know what the answer is. When you say AWAS is a nicety, what does that mean?
So airports aren't required to have AWAS at them to operate an airport at night. Way back in the days, the Colorado Department of Transportation went through a big push.
Sorry, wait, if we aren't required to have an AWAS, why does the FAA have to approve a new cell phone connection?
Because with all things that are airfield related, which are technical equipment, they must be approved by the FAA. So we can't just put out, our own system, hook it up to the radio and say, hey, here we're good to go. This weather's good to go. It has to meet FAA standard for us to broadcast.
And having a landline met FAA standards for the last few years?
So this particular system, it is designed to operate off of a landline, and just transitioning it over to something different without the FAA's approval is not allowed.
So my understanding, which is albeit somewhat limited here, is that the AWAS is designed for airfield safety and to help pilots navigate various conditions, right? You're saying, one, that's a nicety, and two, we haven't had an FAA-approved functioning AWAS for how long?
Since it was noted out, probably about a month.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you before. What did you mean again when you said it's a nicety?
It's not required by, it's not required for an airfield to have an AWAS system by FAA standard.
Okay.
But
right.
if we did have one, it must meet the FAA standard.
I understand that distinction. Okay. How many airports are you familiar with that don't have an AWAS?
Oh, many.
Many?
Yeah.
So this is not entirely like out of the realm of reason.
Yes.
How many of this size with this amount of traffic volume?
For specifics on that, I couldn't comment. I'd have to get data.
Okay. Do you think the FAA would be concerned if we don't have a functioning AWAS given the amount of traffic volume we see?
I mean, they'd like it fixed as soon as possible too, and I've been in communication with them also.
Okay. Thank you. Going back to the voluntary noise abatement program section, when this is building on board member Menza's questions.
Okay.
What I heard from you is that it was really good. It was tremendous to have the FAA presence here. Why? Like, what makes this meeting more productive or valuable than when they're not there?
Excellent question. So it's something that had kind of been tossed around a couple times before, and the meeting we had, the quarterly meeting we had prior to this was really kind of pushed us like, hey, we really should get FAA participation here. And the real benefit to that, in my perspective, and of course it's all, perspective, is that in previous meetings we'd had conversations like, okay, what do you think the FAA's intent was? What do you think the FAA would say to that? And being able to have an individual like that at the table is tremendously great. So for example, during the meeting, a question was brought up, well, how many operations, I want to say it was how many operations actually were here this year? And Vaughn had, the data at his tip for multiple airports because he'd been, coordinating with multiple airports and the functions of his position. Mm-hmm. So it was really great having someone there to clarify the intent of the FAA, to clarify their position, to clarify data and stuff like that. And I felt like it was a great benefit to the conversation. I think most parties involved, I know he specifically expressed how great he thought it was that he was involved in that meeting, so I think it was a great thing.
Okay. When you say the meeting overall was really good, can you be a little bit more specific about what was discussed and what action items, if any, are coming out of that? So specific action items, one of the things, we talked about different voluntary noise. Of course, we always review all of our voluntary noise abatement procedures. We have handouts. We go over various materials. One of the things that we meaning you
the
and the other airport managers and the
so
other.
it's
Who else is attending?
Flight schools, FAA, airports, airport managers, et cetera. So, of course, it's always driven towards clarity. It's always driven towards communications. It's what can we do moving forward to make voluntary noise abatement plans more accessible? What can we do to coordinate with each other? For a question that came up, which we'll explore more in the future, at this particular meeting, for example, was, hey, are there things that, every airport's different, so every airport's going to have their own voluntary abatement procedures, but what could we do to start aligning them a little better? So as pilots go from airport to airport to airport to airport, maybe there's like this base set of rules, and then there's specific things for that airport. How can we start standardizing things for people? So that's ideas like that are thrown out. So that was one of the big takeaways from that meeting.
Great, thank you. And then my last question on this topic is, you mentioned the FAA can provide oversight of flight schools. I believe you said that in your response to one of the other board members' questions. What types of oversight have they provided in the past, or can they provide?
Oh, say, for example, Von Hansen, and of course, not speaking directly for him, in my capacity, my knowledge of his position, he oversees the Part 141 flight schools. So, of course, a plethora of federal regulation that those flight schools must follow. So he does their annual inspections. He does their checkout on their chief pilots. He comes and he inspects their logbooks. He's the one that deals when there's complaints with the flight schools and stuff like that. So that was kind of his position. So he's deep into the paperwork every day with these flight schools. So does that kind of answer your question?
Kind of, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my last question unrelated to that is, you mentioned the unleaded fuel transition plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, at this stage, is that a public plan?
It's just a draft
It's
at
a
the
draft
moment.
that you're submitting for FAA
input or comment?
So
or CDOT, excuse me.
specifically CDOT, yeah. So we drafted that, sent it to CDOT for some basic idea with the idea that we can then bring it back to the city and to the board and stuff like that. And as of yet, not heard back from them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Okay, I think we're good. Next would be information items, I guess.
Yep. So I haven't heard any updates on lease agreements. I think I understand the problem in as much as we don't have a consistent method of running leases contiguous to new owners. So I think that actually is being addressed in next year's budget,
What was the specific question?
the lease agreements.
Sorry, what
That's
was,
number one.
what was the actual question?
Well, as I understand it, the lease agreements as they exist now, a new owner comes in, previous owner had a 10 or a 5 or a 20-year lease agreement, the new owner is not guaranteed of the same terms.
I believe that's true, just generally.
So currently speaking, kind of the way we've been positioning leases right now is we've been doing transfers. The current new lease template that we're still using, if a new lease needed to be created, is the same one we've been running for about the last 3 years. So about 4 months ago, we processed a couple new leases under that. So as of yet, nothing.
Were they the same terms?
They were pretty much the same terms. So as of yet, the new draft lease agreements, which we kind of sent out to you guys, none of that has been put into function yet. That's still all just a draft. So that's just being considered. I think, is that?
Well, I guess my question is this. The ownerships of multiple hangars can be condominium-based, they can be corporation-based, they can be individual owners. And I'm thinking that probably the transfer of ownership is not consistent and not necessarily a public event whenever these things change.
Well, it's pretty consistent. We pretty much follow the same rules for everyone.
But are you made aware of every change of ownership?
We're supposed to be made aware of every change of ownership, and that's the conversation I have with people. I try to, and when we have that conversation, and the vast majority of people are very good about alerting me. Since I've been here, there's only been one instance when someone has come to me and said, "Oh, hey, I bought this hangar a month ago." For the vast majority of instances, people are pretty good about alerting me.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think they are supposed to let us know
Yes.
because they would need a new lease. And at this point, the leases are all very similar, whether they're commercial or not. But the draft that we sent to you looks a lot different. And so we sent that draft in the last packet, hoping to maybe under this item get some feedback from you all. We can't finalize the new templates for leases until we get the rates and charges study back now at this point. But we did give you a draft of a different way of looking at airport leases. And so we were curious if you did have feedback at this meeting that you would like to share as we continue to move down that road.
Just what my comments were.
Okay. Just that there should be a difference between commercial and,
Well, the structures, I'll give you an example,
Yeah.
for instance. So I don't actually own my hangar. I own shares in the corporation. And to the best of my knowledge, in the last 2 years has been probably 3 to 4 changes of ownership,
Happens. Yeah.
individuals. But I don't know that those individuals are operating on any different leasing structure than the corporation itself.
Oh, so if it's part of a homeowners agreement kind of a thing? is
It's
what
a
you-
corporation.
It's a corporation. So for hangars like that, and there's many on the airfield,
Yes.
if it's, if there's a secretary, if there's a president that I deal with, that's the person I deal with. I don't deal so much with individual subleasers. I try to know who they are so I can have them on my communication. Is that kind of what your input, your question is?
I appreciate the feedback because it sounds like what you're saying is that there's a difference between the corporation, between the shareholders of the hangar and the individual that owns the hangar and that individual.
Owns the
living
shares.
through
They don't even own the metal above them.
Yeah.
They just own the shares, which gives them the right.
the right to
So
be able to do that. Yeah,
that's applicable where my building is.
That's a structure we should look at then in the new leasing
Okay.
setup. Yeah.
But the building right next to me, immediately west of us, is structured as a condominium ownership. So what I'm saying is that there's more hybrid types of ownership
Yeah.
than we're actually aware of.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, because that's not a consideration that we made in this latest lease setup. We kind of determined it was either commercial or individual, so I appreciate knowing that.
Fair enough.
We'll put that into the new leases.
Well, then you have the feedback, and is that, I've got some inspection of the packet. I guess item 2, if we're done with item 1.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I have a comment and a question.
Here, let me see if I can get you on a hot mic.
Okay.
This has been a real treat here.
You got mine hot, so you're doing better.
Oh, it worked. I think it worked. My comment is I would like a little more time to comment on the lease agreement. I didn't know we were looking for feedback. I should have, so that's my bad, but I would like a little bit of time. So I'll probably have questions. Can I just come to one of you two with the questions rather than spending a bunch of time at the board meeting?
Absolutely. I mean, I think our process is a little slowed down now while we wait for the rates and charges study, so there's plenty of time to be able to give that feedback. We can also put it back on as an action item. I think the January meeting, we had talked about bringing back governance, kind of some governance presentation around boards and commissions. This is something that we're going to be doing with a lot of the different boards and commissions this year. So that January meeting, we're suggesting that mostly is dedicated to governance of the AAB. Things like the rules around open records and open meetings and things like that. We've invited our attorney partners to come to that one. So probably February or March, as we get the rates and charges study, we'll put it back on as an action item for actual formal feedback on those leases. But in the meantime, feel free to ask all the questions you'd like.
Yes.
Okay.
Please do. Please go over that. They should be in your packet from last month. And any questions you have, particularly specifics. If there's broader questions, then certainly the board specifics, yes, definitely come and get some clarification.
Okay, it seems like 1 and 2 might be somewhat related, but with regard to, are the lease agreements part of, so there's a study going on for rates and charges, right? Are the lease agreements inside of that study? And there's some we have a consulting firm reviewing that and giving us guidance?
I think it's fair to combine 1 and 2
Yeah.
if that's okay with the chair.
It's fine.
Okay.
I wasn't asking to do that. I was kind of going, it seems like they're related. I'm not really looking for a formal.
They are definitely
Blending.
related.
Okay,
So
good.
the rates and
Seemed like-
charges study, what we are doing is we are requesting quotes from consulting firms right now. Levi has already sent that information out to those firms to provide us a quote, to provide, basically, we're going to give them our pro forma on how things are going financially for the airport and ask them for a full rates and charges study around what are other people charging for different things, what are their recommendations in order to shore up the revenue at the Longmont Airport. And that includes everything from landing fees to leases to tie downs to fuel flowage fees, the whole 9 yards around options for revenue for the airport. So we'll give them all of our financial information. They'll be able to understand the debt issues that come along with the capital projects. And they'll be, what we're asking them to do is to bring us back not only information from the surrounding airports and similar airports, but also their recommendations on how to shore up the revenues at the airport.
And of course, the lease rates will be part of that. And in kind of addition to that, while we're looking at leasing, we're also looking at lease terms, is who we had, AMCG. Kind of, that's really what they focused down on when they went through the leases to provide that draft information, was kind of the terms. And then the rates will come from the study.
Yes, and so you'll notice in the new leases that it's kind of a new methodology. So rather than basing the length of the leases on, kind of an arbitrary, what may or may not make sense, really looking at the investment in the airport as one of the determining factors for the length of the lease. And so that's one piece that we will want feedback on. Is this the kind of methodology that you're comfortable moving forward with? And then the second real kind of big question, big change in the leases is around the reversionary clause. Are you interested and willing to put in a reversionary clause for new construction at the airport, new leases?
Okay.
So those are the two pieces. If you're going to focus on anything, focus on those two pieces. But the rates, it's all
were those two again?
together.
Taking my homework. What were those two?
Yeah, so the first one is the structure for renewals
Right.
based on investment, which was a suggestion made to the council, and they asked us to look into it. And then the second part of that is a reversionary clause, which essentially means that at the end of the lease, any improvements that have been made become city property.
Great. Thank you
Revert
for
back to the airport.
thank
I
you
guess not
for-
really the city, the airport.
saving me from Googling that. Okay, so with this study, would it be fair to
Perfect.
understand that the questions that were being asked about these different structures, whether it's a condo or a homeowner's or a corporate structure, would this consulting firm give their recommendations on answering some of those questions that were asked and their recommendations on it anyway?
Yes, I believe so, although now that I have this question, I'll ask it specifically about the hybrid.
Could
about
be a
some of
trick
the
question
hybrid
for them.
leases.
Hey, did
Could
you
be.
really study this? Okay.
It is for me, but that's not new.
Wasn't a trick question for you, but hopefully they'll uncover that.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that. I mean, these are folks that are experts in airport revenues and financial systems, and so
Beautiful.
we'll
Thank
be
you.
asking their opinion on it.
Board Member Shook. Well, that didn't work.
Almost.
Oh, you got me.
I hate to step on you, Steve, but go ahead.
Let's see. I did look through the new lease agreement that you put in last month's packet, and I wrote notes on it, but did not bring it with me this time. So I appreciate the extra time. However, the one thing that I do remember specifically on that I felt were not, I just personally didn't like some of the numbers and the timeframes. I felt like they were too short. So when you have, $1 million investment and you just want a 10-year lease on that, I think that, I don't remember the specific number, but I just remember looking at it and going, that's not a whole lot of time. And I feel like banks would probably feel that way as well. So hopefully your organization that you're hiring to do the race and charge study will take a look at that. I know that when I was trying to do some business at the airport, the banks wanted more than 20 years on $1 million. So that may become an issue. And then reversionary clauses, are you talking specifically for businesses or are you talking specifically for everyone on the field?
I think those are policy decisions that we would like your feedback on.
Wow, that's I'm adamantly against that, but that's just my opinion on it. I am coming at this seeing a new lease. I don't have your old leases to compare, so that might be helpful for
We
the
can get the
board to
last
see
one.
what we
Yeah.
are moving from and looking to go to. And I think definitely getting the information back from the rates and charges study for the board to be able to apply that information to what you're looking for in a new lease would be helpful. So
We should send that. We'll
We can do
we'll
that.
make sure that we send the new template to the consultants as well as they're busy taking a look at it. I thought that the $1 million investment was up to no more than 50-year lease is what that particular one was. But yes, and you
I
know
don't
what?
remember.
Honestly, the only person that we were able to work with in determining what that looked like was Kelly Sage, who is the CEO of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership. So we did meet with her to see what was kind of common in the industry. And she actually had it as higher investment levels than we ended up putting on there because it seemed a little high for me, I thought. So yes, those numbers it's a great question. And so I look forward to the consultants taking a look and giving some recommendations on what's appropriate in that kind of methodology.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
Board Member Shook.
Maybe.
Maybe.
There you go. I basically had the same concerns as Board Member Tara. I am a hangar owner. I've been a hangar owner at Longmont for 5 or 6 years now. I am concerned with the shorter terms. A lot of the numbers you guys don't get. When a sale, if I sold my hangar to someone, the city doesn't necessarily get that amount I sell it for. they just go in for a new lease. A lot of the hangars now at Longmont are not just $50, $60, $100,000 hangars. Old hangars are going for $300,000, $400,000, and $500,000. And so, I mean, I think that the city needs to look at that if someone's going to pay $500,000 for a hangar, typically he's not going to pull that cash out of his back pocket. He's going to have to go to the bank. I currently own 42 hangars in Monterey. I manage them, I built them, and I've owned commercial property. I built a 60,000 square foot self-storage facility on Monterey Airport property with a 50-year lease. So I know a little bit about how long a lease should be for a large hangar, and you just can't make it. You can't make it pencil out with a bank anything under 30 years for a good size hangar. It just, they just don't consider it real property. When you're borrowing $400,000 on a hangar on a lease, they don't consider it unless you have a long enough term. So that's one thing I want you guys to consider. This is my last board meeting, but I've got 30 plus years dealing with different airports, airport authorities, municipal airports, and I've consulted with municipal airport management on development. And it's when a lease is designed by the airport, it's typically all airport. There's, as a pilot, you don't have much of a choice. You've got to, land at an airport. So if you want a place to put your nice airplane, you have to play the game. But I think as far as the city goes and increasing the value of the airport to the community, if you outprice it, you're going to start, I believe, to diminish the airport, because there's just not going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to afford the hangar, because the bank's not going to loan on it. So that means more money is going to come out of your pocket, and a lot of people will probably not go the purchase price. So anyway, I just hope your consultants understand that, and they're true airport consultants and not just, the run-of-the-mill consultants.
Member Shook, thanks for that feedback. That's great feedback. We'll also consult with the banks and the banking community in addition. I mean, we already did consult with LADP, but we'll also consult with the banks to ensure, because you're right, it's not something that we've considered. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, thanks.
Representative Popkin, your light was on. Okay.
Hey, sorry if I missed this. Did we go out with competitive bids, like for multiple consultants on this? And what was the criteria for selecting them? I'm just kind of reacting to the comments just made, to make sure we have a consultant that's going to give us the best results.
Let me start with that one. one. So Board Member Schilling, as per our purchasing rules, our estimate for this rates and charges study is about $30,000 total. The current purchasing rules only require a full RFP, request for proposals, over a $250,000 bid. So what we're doing at this point is getting quotes because that's what's required. So it does need to be a competitive process, but it's not like a full-blown competitive process. It's one where we get 3 quotes, take a look at at what was included in each of the quotes, and then are able to make that decision generally based on price at that point to ensure that they're able to meet the scope. We send out the scope to the agencies. They respond back with their price. We take a look at those and generally go on the low price for that. So selecting those consultants are based on airport expertise, and so that's Levi that is choosing and has chosen the 3 firms or 4 firms that we're asking for quotes from.
Yeah.
That's the process.
Yeah, currently it's just been a matter of finding people who will actually do it. So we have found at least 3 now people who will actually do it.
That have airport.
Yeah,
they're
will do.
specialized in airport, financial.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought more engineering firms with planning departments would be interested in doing specifically rates and charges study, but they don't all do. So, but currently we do have 3 people that are willing to put in quotes.
And the criteria, I know it's not a full-blown, I'm just still going, okay, how do we, sorry, I'm not familiar with the city procurement process. I'm familiar with private procurement processes.
We don't expect you to.
Thank you.
So what will happen is we put together a scope of services, which basically said what I just said to you. We're looking for a comprehensive rates and charges study with comparisons from
Okay.
local and comparative airports, looking at all revenue streams. We sent out the financial Excel form that you all saw during your board meeting so that they could understand the financials, the current financials of the airport. We send out the scope saying, this is what we're looking for. They write back saying, this is what we can provide. We compare to make sure that they actually meet the scope that we've asked for, and they provide a price. And usually kind of this is how we're going to go about it as well. And so we take a look at those, and generally, I mean, for the most part, people say, yes, I can do this, or they don't bid. And so then we're looking at price as a determining factor at that point, at the end, if they meet all the criteria and they lay out how they're going to do the work.
Okay, so the criteria is in the scope, whether they
Yep.
check that box or not. And Levi, do you feel comfortable with your network talking to other airport managers on which of these rates and charges consultants informally would, like a better word, do a good job? Do you have references or?
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
mean,
that?
anyone, all the people we reached out to are professionals, highly regarded professional
Okay.
engineering firms. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's specifically in aviation.
Thanks. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Sorry if I missed this one. Is there a time frame for the rates and charges study?
So, kind of preliminary estimates say from the point where we give the go-ahead, so we as the city give the go-ahead, it's kind of an estimated 3 to 4 months. Having said that, I always like to say, plan on the longer rather than the shorter. It seems, in my experience, in all things city and / aviation. So as soon as we get information back from the people we reached out to, we can begin that process of moving forward.
The purchasing portion of that usually takes 6 weeks, and then the 3 to 4 months on the study itself, which of course we'll bring back to this group once we have it.
Okay, thanks.
So moving on to item 3, landing fees. Oh, sorry, Representative Pumpkin.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question on the timing there. If, as we're seeking quotes, and since we haven't signed a contract for that time, is there a way to discuss what kind of expedition of time frame is possible? Because I could see, given the number of different challenges that we have been talking about over the last few months, I could see value in trying to have a little bit more concrete information on the sooner side. So I'm just wondering if that's, if that is, I mean, I'm not saying do it in 2 weeks, right? But is there a way to say 2 to 3 months instead of 3 to 4? Can we move that time frame up 1 or 2 months and see? I mean, you've assembled, to your credit, a lot of the data, the budget information over the last few months. It's not like we have to spend a lot of time doing data gathering, so we can hand them off basically the moment we start this right away.
Yeah, I think that's true, Councilmember Popkin. I think that that can be part of the negotiation. I mean, they'll tell us what they need to be able to do the work, and then we could certainly ask them if there's any way to expedite it.
Sure, we absolutely want it to be high quality and credible. If expediting that requires council direction, just let me know. I think it would be beneficial to not only this board, but to the community if we had that information on the sooner side. Thank you.
I'll certainly let our purchasing folks know that as part of the negotiation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3, landing fees. Apparently council voted down landing fees 4-3. So that is not currently going to appear as an information item for the next meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Representative Popkin, but I believe the discussion was moved for the next council members.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for every single person who cast their vote, but I don't believe the decision was to just punt to the next council. There was a decision made whether to enable landing fees at that time. The decision was voted down, and the rates and charges study and kind of moving ahead with that immediately was the direction instead.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Oh, almost.
Thanks. Which, to be clear, in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Levi and Sandy, even if the council had enabled landing fees as a mechanism, the rates and charges study would still need to be done before an actual fee was set for the landing fee. So just from a process standpoint, really neither here nor there in terms of whether you would need a rates and charges study before anything was implemented, whether landing fees were authorized or not.
That was certainly our suggestion, and I believe that's what the council took.
Thank you.
Very good.
So you requested 2 RFPs from the landing fees. Now that it has been voted down, are those RFPs unsealed? As you had mentioned before, they were sealed and we couldn't view them.
You got it.
In that one?
Yep.
Sorry. I hate to be answering all these. I'm over purchasing, so I'm the purchasing person in the room. So those were RFIs, or requests for information.
My apologies.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to clarify. They are still sealed, and the reasoning is because the motion that the city council made was to do the rates and charges study and include landing fees in the rates and charges study. So that would indicate to the purchasing staff that there's a chance at some point that they may want to continue to enact that. So they're holding them as sealed until that process is completely finished. So we'll bring back the rates and charges study. We have asked people to include information about landing fees for the council per their direction. At this point, landing fees did not pass. The ordinance did not pass at this point. We'll bring back the rates and charges study, but because there is a chance that they may go ahead and reenact that at that point, we're going to hold those for just a little longer as sealed. And then once that's decided, then they become open and public.
Okay, I'm not sure how much you can share, but do the RFIs expire at any point?
It's just information. If the council were to decide, let's say, down the road that they did want to explore landing fees again, we would have to do a fresh RFP, which indicates that we're actually ready to purchase something.
Okay, thank you.
Or a quote, or a set of quotes. Yeah. Well, and let me make one other clarification. The contracts for landing fees particularly are a no-cost contract. So we would still run it through the purchasing process, but because what they would do is take a portion of the revenue. It looks a little different in process, but it would essentially be kind of a quote process, but it would be a fresh one at that point.
Levi, do you have a comment?
Oh, good.
Okay, moving on to item number 4, airport traffic. I will say that I have secondhand knowledge that, well, let me back up here. Most of the traffic that we're seeing at the airport, particularly during the weekends, is not local traffic per se, local owners, local aircraft. There's an awful lot of training traffic that's coming in, and Longmont is, again, a larger airport. So we're getting a lot of bleed through from places like BJC, where they have a tower control, and that slows down the training, so people want to come here so they can do their touch and goes, and they want to do their training, et cetera, et cetera. I know specifically that one of the training facilities at BJC has specifically requested that their students spread out their traffic so that they're not clogging up our airspace and creating more noise. Now, I've been at the airport frequently recently simply because I've got a project going in my hangar that doesn't have an airplane in it right now. And the daytime traffic is pretty reasonable. So hopefully that message of reducing training traffic and centering on Longmont and spreading out your touch and goes to other airports is actually being heard and obeyed. Anybody have any comments on this? Oh, yes, you do.
I don't remember where I heard it, but I did hear that BJC's tower is back to being fully staffed, and they are allowing touch and goes. I'd have to just double verify that, but that could be the reason why we're not hearing so much as well. But I don't, Levi, have you had any extra complaints this last month or 2 months? Anything out of the ordinary for noise complaints?
Nothing out of the ordinary. So far for December, we've only had 2 noise complaints. Preliminary look at complaints this year compared to last are approximately the same as far as data. Of course, the year's not over. But yeah.
You did hear in public invited to be heard a suggestion to see more about the air traffic reports that Levi gets. Is that something that you would be interested in for your packets, is to see some of those reports from AMS?
I think the more data we can get, the just more knowledge we have would be great.
Yeah, and I think that really ties in well with what AMS's proposal for actually gathering that data and putting it in a user interface potentially also.
Yeah, I agree with Board Member Mensa. That's useful information for us.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have comments? You do.
Question there. I was going to bring this up later, but and it can be deferred if you want, but in public invited to be heard tonight, we heard a request for this kind of information, and I wanted to explore what information can the AMS collect? What information do we collect? And what information, it's a loaded question, sorry. And we can defer it if you want, but we have this information, this data collection system. What's it capable of? What do we collect? And what do we
I can answer that one.
publish of that? What do we publish either to the city or the community publicly?
So in essence, what it collects is it uses the GPS data, the ADS-B data taken from each individual aircraft, which kind of creates a general running list of who visits the airport. So anyone who is registered within the FAA system, and you can or you can't be, is recorded in the system. So then the AMS data then kind of takes that, and they can then do what they want with that data. They can represent it any way. They represent it in pretty general terms way, which we've used in snippets and charts that we've showed the airport board before and city council before. And one of the things that they've recently offered, which I think has some value, is tailoring that data specifically to us. So a few months back they had a proposal. We covered it in the airport advisory board and said, hey, they could potentially do this user interface, which now I think a specific example was they look at aircraft operating at the airport and they compare it to the voluntary noise abatement program, and they show you which aircraft, what percentage of aircraft are following procedures and running lists and stuff like that. So with that raw data, there's a lot that could be done, through their advisors, through their systems, through their calculations to digest that data, if you will.
We thought this is something we would bring up during the noise abatement program section of this agenda, but this is a fine time to discuss it, I think, under airport traffic. Right now, we just get basic data around, how many are touch and goes, how many are landings, those kinds of things. And you may remember what I think Levi is referring to is maybe it was 2 months ago where we provided
2 months ago.
The presentation from AMS on what the other possibilities were. That was a very packed meeting, and your action items were landing fees for that day. So my guess is that it kind of slipped by. But what we would like to do, and in fact, what we plan to do, is to take AMS up on their offer to evaluate the effectiveness of the VNAP. That's something that council asked for you all to take a look at. We were going to ask tonight if you had any other suggestions other than us using AMS to evaluate that for us. But then after they finish and decide whether the VNAP is effective or not, they can also hold neighborhood group meetings and discuss with the neighbors their opinions about how things are going. and can also even suggest some additional flight plan changes or changes to the VNAP. It all must remain voluntary per the FAA, but there's some opportunity for us to engage, I think, with the community through AMS as our consultant to help us not only determine whether it's effective, but for them to make some suggestions on how we could make it more effective based on their work. So we presented that a couple months ago. Like, it was a very, very packed meeting and was a lot of information. But Levi and I have talked about it a couple times since then, and I think we would like to pursue that option with AMS, mostly because if we were to ask you to evaluate the effectiveness of the VNAP, what data would you have to do that?
Right.
So we feel like we need to probably provide that. So that's the direction we would like to go. We do think we still have the savings in this year's budget and in the fund to be able to do that because it's like $7,000 or $8,000. It's not a huge, heavy contract change, and they already have a main contract with us. So that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, but seems like a good time to bring it up.
So when you report airport operations, is that coming out of this system?
Yes.
Some of the basic information,
Yes.
just how many airplanes come and go.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just a little quick recap. We first started using AMS about 3 years ago. We were one of the first 2 general aviation airports in Colorado to start actually collecting data. I should clarify that one of the first 2 general aviation airports without a control tower to start collecting data like this. And of course, the whole thought process, all that was how we can collect the data, how we can use that, to our benefit. So they've been a good partner over the last 3 years.
Great.
Councilman Popke?
Thank you, Chair. Sandy, thank you for offering the AMS data there. I think that's going to be really helpful to include in this group's packet. I was just curious, what other information do you guys have at your fingertips that maybe we don't always know what to ask for that can be just kind of included in a monthly update that doesn't take up a lot of staff capacity or time to generate every single 3 weeks?
The only other one I was thinking is maybe the number of noise complaints, because we are tracking those. So maybe that's the only other thing that I can think of offhand. Do you have ideas?
Essentially, to be more specific, I'd probably say the number of complaining households. But yeah,
Is there any other information that you get regularly that you think might be helpful?
nothing I can think off the top of my head. Yeah.
So that would be budget, that would be AMS, and that would be the noise complaint information.
Plus the newsletter that he sends out.
Plus the newsletter.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I do remember that meeting, and I think we were all in a panic because everybody was in a panic about the money at the airport. And I remember us saying, oh, this information all looks great, but we don't have any money, right? So we don't want to spend the money right now that we don't have. I think data is good to have. So I think as long as, my opinion would be if the money is there and we can spend it for this, and it was about 10 grand from what I remember. And we kind of all just gawked at that because everybody was panicked about the money. The more information, the better. Is it accurate information? We get people who come to public comment and say, this airplane was 500 feet above my house. I can imagine it might sound like it's 500 feet above someone's house, but it's not really 500 feet. So how accurate is the data that we're going to get out of this?
The best way of putting that would be, apart from having a FAA actual radar site, which actually uses echo, as accurate as you will get. So beyond anything we could certainly do ourselves, or you could certainly do through an open source system, they're as accurate as, is available to us for sure.
And Member Menza, I asked that question of the AMS folks because I'm like, I see all these emails, and I'll have one where they say, this is where this person was, and they're using their free flight tracker to see, and they've got a picture, a screenshot, and they're sending it to me. And then Levi looks and he's like, well, that's not actually where they were. Not necessarily location-wise. I think I erred in saying that to the council one other time. Not the location, but the altitude. And the reason that the AMS consultant told me was because the free trackers aren't considering barometric pressure, whereas his tracker is. And so he contended that his tracker was much more accurate than the free ones. But that's his answer, not my answer. But thought I would at least share that with you because I was surprised to
Okay.
see
Yeah,
that.
that's good to know. I mean, I just want to make sure we're not going to get data that shows,
30 airplanes that are flying 20 feet above people's houses or 20 feet above the ground, and it's not correct.
Board Member Schilling.
Thank you. This might be implied in all this, but could we get the percent of aircraft that are following procedure? Is that?
That was kind of the main selling point of
Yeah, that's-
AMS's presentation.
Okay, so that would be part of the data we would get.
Yeah, and that would be one of the additional services they could provide.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to item number 5, which is Airport Authority. Last month, we had a presentation from one of the owner-operators, Advanced Brand, describing to us what an airport authority happened to be. This information item appears simply because I would like to put a motion in for discovery of what the structure of an airport authority would be and how that would interface to, say, us as board members, and what benefit there would be from all of this. So if I may make that motion and request a second?
Second.
We have a second? We have a vote, please? Those in favor, please say aye. Discussion, excuse me. Whoa, there's a lot to discuss here. In no particular order. Steve?
Oh, sorry. No. I seconded.
So if there is an airport authority, would there be a board? You asked the question, what would the board's role be with the authority? And what's the precedent? What do other airports do? Do they usually run, are they redundant? Do they run in parallel? What do other airports do? They have boards and authorities, and why would they have that?
Traditionally speaking, airport authorities have the airport board, which is the airport authority board, which is a board which is decision-making, and how that board is made up or who it's made up of depends upon how that board was organized by that particular government region.
So there would not be two separate, the board would be the authority and the authority would be the board. Okay.
So Levi and I got to go meet up with the Greeley airport manager recently. The Weld Greeley Airport is run by an airport authority, and part of that was because it was in 2 different jurisdictions. It was in Weld County, but also, in Greeley. And so as they were, as he was discussing it, what they decided was that the airport authority board would be members of each of those governing bodies. So there's for example, there's 2 council members and there's 2 commissioners and there's, other folks that are part of that board that are either appointed by the city council or otherwise. But they serve much more as a business board as opposed to a citizen board. So they really are making the business decisions for the airport, and it gives a different kind of, enterprise to the way that they do their operations.
And from my experience, what I know, that's pretty indicative of how they're organized.
It would essentially split the airport from the city operations.
Okay. And another question. When we're looking at these, is there precedent or what examples of airports our size and character have authorities?
It's not without precedent. If I recall correctly, I think there's 7 airports in Colorado that are airport authorities. I can't think of them all off the top of my head. Greeley's probably the closest one to us, which is, they get their runways a little longer, but as far as there's very similar in other respects. So it's the question becomes, how do we compare apples to apples instead of apples
Size,
to oranges?
flight operations, revenue.
Yeah,
There's
indeed.
easy objective criteria.
Yeah, so for example, Greeley is much longer runways, but fewer flight operations. So it depends on how do you compare.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that Greeley has about 25,000 less operations than Longmont Airport does.
Okay.
Even though they're much bigger physically, size-wise, and have a lot different amenities.
Okay, thanks.
Representative Popkin.
Thank you, Chair. Could you restate your motion for me?
Just a motion to investigate what the structures would be and how an airport authority would interface with the board and the airport users.
Could you clarify? So is the motion to direct staff to investigate that? Is it to ask council to look into that?
No,
Is it
it's
to encourage each other to look into that?
Yes, to encourage board members to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
And are we done with the discussion?
Building off of what Councilmember Popkin just asked, so you would like for all of us to come back with information to discuss this?
It could be individuals, it could be the entire board, it could be any structure. It could be one or two people,
And for the next meeting, or for, what's your time frame?
anytime in the future.
Okay. And what are you thinking the plan would be for this to go and ask council? Is there going to be like a
No, to see if there's-
recommendation to council when we get back with this information? We discuss it and say, hey, we want to recommend council to do this? Is this what you're,
No,
I'm just trying to
see if
figure out
there's
what we're doing.
If there's a perceived benefit to both the airport and the city.
Okay.
Board member Shook.
I'm just kind of thinking about, each individual getting information where it looks like Sandy and Levi have already somewhat started the process to gather information. And I know it would be hard for us to vote on recommending a airport authority until everybody was in tune. So I guess what you're asking is probably a good idea. That's not what I was going to say initially, but unless each one knows what an airport authority is, and how it's run and how it could benefit the city. I like the idea of a separation because I feel like in the financials, there's a lot of mingled expenses that are shared. And I think the real numbers would be better shown totally separate from the city. And I think that's what the airport authority would do.
Chair Meester, I would agree with what Member Shook just said as far as the separation and understanding better what the costs are going to be. The City Council asked me to bring back some information about airport authorities when we last met. They declined to hear the presentation, but I had included it in their packet, so it was in there. I forget the name of the gentleman who spoke last time.
Ken Foley. Kyle, excuse me, my bad.
Everything that he said reflected the research that I had done on airport authorities. The pros and cons, of course, really are dependent on your position and what you think about it. We could certainly present some pros and cons that we find kind of traditionally, but there wasn't anything that he had in his presentation that I didn't find out in my research. It seemed very similar. So as far as what it is and how they work and that kind of the operational piece of it, his presentation was spot on to my research. As far as the pros and cons, that's a good question, who you would like to develop those. And I do think that the financials would be interesting to look at if you had to hire your own payroll person and you had to hire your own accounting person, what might that look like? Yeah.
Okay. Councilman Popkin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the spirit of this motion, and I just wanted to maybe offer a comment, an observation that I've observed over the course of this year with this group. And it sounds like as multiple topics have evolved, and I don't say it on this one in particular, but I've observed that multiple board members are basically kind of reaching out to different airports and picking up the phone or reaching out to different airport managers. And there's a risk there that it is very decentralized, and that you have multiple board members basically going off and either doing anecdotal research or crossing wires and talking to the same airport managers or airports, because sometimes there are only a few airports in certain situations where they might have X policy implemented or at X level, right? And so I do want to make sure that if you're directing own research, that we don't undercut some of the value that either Levi and Sandy are doing, or that so the professionals in the space who are meant to do that. I don't mind the spirit of doing some research to kind of come back more informed and encouraging the group to do that. I might generally encourage this group, if not strongly generally encourage this group, to either, at a minimum, coordinate if there's follow-up action that would be appropriate or appreciated to talk to a few specific airports. For instance, if you all did some desktop research and came back and said, hey, these 4 airports seem like they would have valuable information for us, and you can agree on that, that might be useful information to recommend to council. Staff can then do that in a coherent way with clear and consistent questions, so that you don't have board members asking different kind of disparate interview questions, if you will. So maybe the one caveat I would offer to your motion, and I'm not a voting member of this here, of course, but I think I would urge the board, if you are going to move forward with this, that you consider this more in a desktop research phase and not a let's pick up the phone and call kind of independently to get information, or do kind of email reach out, just so that you don't have multiple members of board crossing wires, and perhaps crossing wires with staff and getting conflicting information.
Board Member Schilling.
Thank you. That's a great observation, suggestion, concern. So I hear that, and I was picking up the phone. So, but no, I know, and I learned a lot. But I get what you're saying, and I agree. Just an overall comment when we start talking about the finances. It seems like, and I'm not opposed to this. I think we should all learn, and I think that's part of the reason I'm here. So I'm supportive of the spirit of this motion, especially with the caveat that we're not all asking questions in a different way. But the concern I have with some of the comments is on the finances, why do we, and this is not intended to undermine the motion at all, why do we need a authority to understand finances? It seems like we should get to the bottom of our finances regardless of whether we have an authority or not, or whatever lens we look through, whether that's run by an authority or the way we're structured now. What would be the difference between the finance view through an authority versus a city? Strictly from the finance, not from the motivation, but I was a little confused on that. Can maybe Sandy?
I could certainly take a shot at what Member Shook was talking about, but for the current airport budget, there is a set of administrative transfer fees, which are what we have recorded is what we have spent as far as time at the airport. And I think what he was discussing, but feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, is we say this costs this much money to administratively assist the airport from the city money. That's the admin transfer fee. But if you looked at it separately and you said, okay, if you didn't have the city doing these things because the airport is its own entity, then this is how much this would cost. This is how much people pay for payroll and accounting and safety and maintenance and things like that. Is that what you were mentioning, that you'd be able to kind of see it more discreetly what an airport authority might benefit?
Matt? The other Matt.
Oh, hey. I guess my question is for the board. Why do we need this? I mean, it's our duty, I guess, to kind of do our own research anyways and present it in this forum so we can pass it along to Councilman Popkin. Councilman Popkin can pass that along to the city council. So I'm just kind of confused on why we need this. Like, I myself have done research as well. I've not picked up the phone though. I will say that. And I've looked at this already. So I don't see why we need to have a motion to direct everybody to do this when it's already kind of our duty.
Board Member Shook.
So I'll answer your question. Yes, that's pretty much what I was thinking as far as the financials. I think there's a few other items also that if you go through each line item, there's probably more money being spent than really needs to be, like the motor pool and different things like that. You know, and I didn't go through every one, but it just seems like there's thousands of dollars that can be put to different uses, I guess, or even just cutting the budget down so, you know, we're not in a deficit in 4 or 5 years or what have you. As far as an airport authority, I just think that it's a cleaner entity, and there's not all these different departments in the city involved. I remember when you guys were trying to do the financials, seemed to me that was a long, kind of drawn out thing. Well, being a general contractor on a multi-million-dollar business, when I needed a P&L or something, I pushed a button. I realized you guys had to draw information from different departments to try to get that budget in line. I think with an airport authority, they could have their own bookkeeper, push a button every month to provide for, an advisory board. I don't think having an airport authority would delete an advisory board, but again, that's all how it's set up, you know, if the city decided that it would be a good idea. This is my last board meeting, but I do plan on joining Kyle fully and trying to help educate wherever we can.
Member Shook, do you remember, I believe that Kyle was representing a new group, the Friends of the Advanced Brand
Yes.
Airport Authority. Was there?
No, it's
was it
just Friends of
the
Advanced
Airport?
Brand.
What was he said he was coming back with something at the end of his presentation, and I'm just not recollecting what he was going to bring back to this board.
What we're doing right now, and I don't want to speak for Kyle, because he's kind of running with this thing, and I didn't want to involve myself until I was kind of off the board. But he is going to provide some kind of a study to present. And I can't think of the actual name of the study, but I know it had to do with the Loveland Airport and Greeley and some of the surrounding airports. And we were going to kind of piggyback on the studies that they've already done. But yeah, I think that's probably within about a month, I believe, of being able to give a presentation again.
Board Member Menza.
Member Gibson, I can completely relate to your comments. And Chairman Meester, could we maybe put this, instead of doing this motion to do the research, could we just put this on the agenda for February or March, and then possibly then everyone can do their research and then come back with the information that's needed to address the item on the agenda, and at some point have Kyle come back and give us the results of that study that he's done.
I will be glad to table this motion and have further discussion at future meetings.
Yeah, thank you.
You can do that. All right.
Okay, so that brings us to the final information item, the noise abatement program.
Which is mine, yay. That's and actually we pretty much covered it all. The big items I had on that, and then Sandy's got one other item, was the talk about the Big Five meeting, the VNAP meetings, and then the independent assessment from AMS potentially. And then kind of in conjunction with it is the city communication plan, so I'll let you talk to that.
Yeah, thanks, Levi. So one of the other divisions that work in the shared services in my area is communications. And so we had already started engaging our communications team and helping us around some of the information on the website and elsewhere. So as you know, we moved to a brand new website this year, about a year ago, like last month. And all of the airport stuff just got kind of pulled over, like not really audited for effectiveness or efficiency in communication, just kind of got yanked from the old site to the new site. So I've asked Jill Liss, who does communications for the airport, external services is her specialty area, to audit the website and to create a full communications plan for the airport. Which includes everything from getting information to target audiences like pilots, as well as the public, as well as people who might be interested. Would include a public relations campaign, trying to create some videos to help the public with understanding about airport operations, as well as helping to publicize some of the events at the airports. So she has put together an outline of that communications plan. I'm thinking it might be best if we email it to you for your information so that you have it and can take a look at what she is planning to do. And then she is going to complete the full communications plan and bring it back to you. She'll be here to present to you in February so that you can see what her plans are. But a big piece of it is just really kind of straightening out the airport website. And making sure that we have proactive communication on a regular basis about the things that are happening at the airport so that it's easy to find the information. I know this is something that Councilmember Popkin has also mentioned to me. He's given me some examples from other communities and other airports around cleaner maps, easier to use, websites and flyers. And the airport stuff is pretty dated. So I have gotten on the schedule with the communications team. And so she'll, like I said, she'll be providing you the full plan in February, but we can go ahead and send you the outline now via email so that you can review it. A preview, yeah.
And just real quick distinction, there is also a VNAP communications plan. This is separate from that. So we have our now required VNAP communications plan via the CDOT, and this would be a city communication plan.
Very good. Board Member Schilling.
That sounds wonderful. I love the idea of getting that stuff out there. That stuff being the airport information. So it sounds like you're going to turn this on so that we can see it as board members to see this, or can we see this now? Is this live now?
You mean the communication plan?
Well, what's on the web?
You can see, yeah, I mean, she is in the process of doing the audit on the web now. So once she is finished with that, she'll make some recommendations to us on things that we should change and fix, and she'll actually have to be the one that does it because she's the one that has the access to the web. So as it sits today, the website is what it looks like. You're welcome to take a look through all the different pieces and parts. What I've noticed is that it takes a long time to get into where you might need to find something. And one of the things that hit me this last week is Harold said to me, hey, go grab me that airport map where you can see the flight path, and it took me a lot longer than it should have for me to be able to find that. So what I would envision and what we talked about with Jill was really creating an airport landing page where once you get to the airport landing page, what are you there for? Are you a pilot? Are you a developer? Are you the general public? Or are you someone who is upset with something that's happening? And so how can we get you to the information that you need as opposed to here's the airport and now search all these different files. So our hope is to be able to give very clear and concise FAQs, information, videos, and things like that based on the audience as opposed to just here's everything and good luck. There's a very good Southwest development study that has been done on the airport that is buried on the very last page at the bottom. So like if I was a developer, that would be really hard for me to find. So those are the kinds of things that we'll be doing as part of the audit. And then once she's finished, she'll make those changes to the airport site and y'all can take a look at it and let us know if there are things that we should change.
Okay, great. So do we have in the city a user experience UI expert? Is that Jill?
So we don't have a UI expert, but we usually use focus groups when it comes to web design. So that's what she'll do. She has a process to be able to take a look at it, and then we'll make sure that folks can use it well. And it's so pliable. The website is so easy to change around that once we have a design finished and tested, then we'll bring it back to you, and you're welcome to submit other suggestions.
So this has always been a question I've had. So I think you answered it, but I'll just try to, without adding a leading question. Do we have a user experience or a UI professional, professionally trained with experience developing our websites for the city and then for the airport?
We have a website administrator that serves that role.
Are they professionally trained with user experience?
Yes, they
okay,
are.
Great.
Yes, they are. And when we did the website in the first place, the way that it is redesigned today is because of the focus groups and the UI
Great.
testing and things like that. But the individual sections were not. The overall structure of the website was tested, but the individual pieces, like an airport section, was not tested as part of that. So that's what we'll do now.
That's the next stage.
Yep.
Great. That's exciting to me. Thank you.
Board Member Menza?
Just to echo the thank you for doing that, because yes, the little airport page is not very fun at the moment. Maybe could you look at some other airport websites and just kind of compare what they have on theirs throughout? And I can't give you any specifics. I've looked at a lot, and some are better than others, but maybe just look at different airport websites and see what they have on theirs, and definitely pull what you can, the good information, and make it more user-friendly so that it's not so convoluted and you go to look for something and you get lost in the weeds. Which is what I feel is happening right now. And there is a lot of good data we can be putting on our website, and I think it would behoove us to put some of that data on there.
Yes, absolutely. And again, if there are sites that you have seen that you're like, wow, this one is really great, please send it to Levi and to myself, because we're happy to get that information to Jill too. I know we have a lot of feedback from Councilmember Popkin that we'll be incorporating. And as you see the outline, once you see the outline, you'll kind of see how she's planning to roll the website piece as well as overarching communications on behalf of the airport.
Board Member Schilling, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Will we be able to set alerts for various things? We talked about tracking noise abatement. If people are following that procedure, will there be a mechanism to either set alerts or set metrics for compliance to our noise abatement program?
Of course, those would be good questions for AMS as we vet out
Great.
any potential add-ons.
Board Member Gibson?
Just a comment to add to the website. Maybe add something. I'm sorry, the feedback. Maybe add something to where it can connect to the boards page, to where you can see the agenda and packets for the airport board, just so we have more participation. I love the audience that we get right now, but it'd be great if we could always fill the seats.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 7, action items. There are none listed. So we'll move to final public to be heard. Please state your name and your address. You have 5 minutes.
Hey, here we go. Scott Stewart, 229 Grand Street. Hey, I greatly appreciate the conversations tonight. I think you all did put in a really, really genuine effort here. Hey, November, your packet from November, page 8, 9, and 10, that's the lease policies. If you haven't read them, and you're correct about the $10,000 or whatever, but it goes by dollars invested in the airport, and then the more dollars you invest, the longer term your lease could be, what have you. I encourage you all, it's only 3 pages, just read that thing. I know you guys punted it down to somebody else to take a look at it, but you guys should be educated on it. Page 9 has the terms and condition. Little discussion earlier about leases and, when people are selling, hangars and what have you. There's many clauses within the existing, there's some existing leases that actually have a clause in it that you have to notify the airport or the airport management before you actually sell your hangar. Some of these leases actually have a first right of refusal where the city could purchase that hangar instead of that hangar going to a different thing. And honestly, if you want to have a sustaining airport moving down the road that pays for itself, the city needs to start buying hangars. This is part of that revenue stream and what have you. And then if we can get landing fees and generate enough money to start buying hangars, then eventually these landing fees go away. There's a longer term plan here. If you guys can look beyond, the next 5 years, I think we can actually build a better airport. Some of these other things are in rules and regulations at the airport. Please read those. And there's a lot of stuff that I understand Levi's a one-man band, and it's difficult for him to be the manager and the covenants coordinator or what have you. You guys got a lot of really good stuff already in place, but we're not following it, and most people don't even know about it because they're not aware. Hey, we're on track to actually. It looks like we're on track, and Sandy can correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like we're on track to be under budget for 2025. Close. Okay. If we are under budget for 2025.
We would have been under budget, except that now we're doing a rates and charges study and an AMS, which is going to take
Well, I'll tell you where I was going with this.
It's going to use the savings, but it won't be over, I promise you that.
I'll tell you where I was going with this. If we are on track to be under budget for 2025, I think it would be a great good faith thing for the airport to, pay back the city and not for that full administrative transfer fee. If we're talking about a airport authority and what have you, where you're paying all your own bills, you wouldn't be getting a discount from the city for those, or from a contractor for those rates and services. So as an idea to just start paying your full bill, because honestly, the general fund could use it this year. AMS, goodness, they got a video. I've been told here to Google it. Google it. AMS. Look at their instruction video. Powerful tool. A lot of stuff that we can derive from the AMS system. And let's not wait for the full packet to come in. The information about the number of planes that are landing, the amount of time that they spend here at the airport, whether they're based airport, whether they're transient, whether they're using a tie down, whether they're fueling. A lot of this information is already available that we've been tracking for 3 years now. Request that information because you guys need to understand that so that we can move forward in a positive manner. Little troubling thing. We talked about barometric pressure, and I've heard this before that the tracking systems are not giving accurate stuff because the barometric pressure might not have been reset. If you got one of those fancy watches, you got to reset it before you go climbing a mountain, or else you're not going to get your true altitudes. My understanding is the barometric pressure and the information that's being shown on that is also being shown to other pilots in the sky. In other words, you guys are communicating with this tracking system. It's not just the airport understanding. It's not just the airport that's understanding where you are or what you are. This is plane-to-plane communication as well. Do you guys not communicate, or is it all radio? It's all radio? Oh, so your altitude, you don't get to see the altitude of the plane that's coming in over here or crossing or whatever. Oh, you guys got a big problem with high wings, low wings, all of that stuff. Jeez. All right. The chair asked for members to look up the airport, look into the airport authority. Gosh dang it, thank you. Thank you for asking everybody to be better informed and whatever. And Member Gibson, thank you for actually already doing this and going out and seeking this information, because as you say, it's our duty. And I believe it is, and I applaud you for taking that seriously, and I encourage everybody else to do it. And I'm sure some of you have and didn't get a chance to toot your horn, but it's important what you do. And the airport is not just the airport. The airport is within Longmont. It's part of Longmont. What you guys do affects Longmont And if you guys can communicate better and communicate better with the people that are coming here from outside of here, and respect those of us on the ground, it would be greatly appreciated. And again, I appreciate all the efforts tonight. Thank you.
Chair Meester, I apologize. I should not have answered his question at public invite to be heard. I'm just used to answering Scott all the time.
That's fine. Seeing no other members of the public present, we'll move on to item number 9. And it appears that we have a couple of board members who have some comments or questions. Board Member Shook.
Yeah, just a comment on first right of refusal that Scott had mentioned. Not all hangars right now have first right of refusal. Just the new leases coming out have the first right of refusal. So if I sold my hangar, that particular person, when he renewed the lease, would have that clause in his lease, not me. Just clarifying that.
Okay. Board Member Gibson.
Levi, thank you very much for all the information today. I was looking at Broomfields Airport, KBJC, and their board has a really intricate packet. There's lots of colors, lots of visuals, and just a suggestion, I'm not telling you how to do your job or anything, but maybe you could put a presentation in their PowerPoint that kind of further explains what you're talking about. I'm so sorry for this feedback. What you're talking about, so the clarification isn't so investigative on your part. Maybe we could also have a map of the airport so we can remember where things are at for some people who may not know exactly what or where the apron is, for example. Another comment I have, not for you, just a general comment, is that in my previous comment last month, I had made a remark about requesting a letter to politicians. And I'm not saying that we're reaching out to them directly as a board. I'm saying that we could invite somebody as a person in that role, or one of their staff members even, to give us a presentation on what the government can do for the city of Longmont. That way, us as a board has more information about what our federal government or state government can do for us. I did a little bit of research, as I mentioned before, and I found that in the city of Harrison, Arkansas, they received a $7 million grant for their airport. And they said that they were just going to do a facelift on their airport. That's all that they could afford. But the $7 million project is now going to give them a complete new terminal. And that was done with the support of Senator Boozman from Arkansas. Now, if we had that same support here, if we knew about that support, then we could make that recommendation to the city to pursue those types of projects. Thank you.
Board Member Menza. Yeah. Let's try this again.
So a couple of things. Board Member Shook, thank you for your time and what you've devoted. And this is being your last meeting. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to work with you and serve on this board with you, but
I can tell you're very passionate about it, and I appreciate it. So thank you, and I hope that you still obviously stay involved. So I appreciate it. And come to be our audience too. Public invited to be heard. You can come there. Levi, I just want to say thank you for the communications about the skydiving accident. I feel like that was in my face. I don't know how other board members felt, but I felt like that was communicated quite well. And there was follow-up, and you were quick on the fly to get that out to everyone. I haven't been in my airplane, so I haven't gone flying lately. I don't know what the pilots were hearing on that end, but I do know, like, as an airport user, I did get that fairly quickly, and so I do appreciate that.
That's the new plan.
Good. And to follow up with public invited to be heard comment, pilots, not all pilots get air-to-air communications. When we're flying into or out of a specific airport, we can dial into AWOS and get density, altitude. We can get different, winds and information that's pertinent to flying an airplane. But as we are flying, we don't get that information unless maybe we subscribe to something called ForeFlight, and not everyone subscribes to ForeFlight. We have it because my husband is a professional aviator. We have several airplanes. We have a very fast airplane, and we can use that information. He uses it when he flies for Delta. That will give you the information you need in the air with other airplanes and other traffic. But not everybody has that. Not, typically you're just private pilot or flying around getting your landings in may not have that. So when you're on the ground and you're using something like FlightAware to track airplanes, you're going to get the different altitudes that may not be correct, just to kind of put that out there. The one question I do have, Sandy, is I want to ask about land use around airport, or maybe even Levi. Does Longmont have a land use policy that is specific to developments in relationship to grant assurances?
That's a good question.
I mean, I think the grant assurances are really on the airport property specifically, because things that we have taken grants for from the FAA then remain, in kind of the custody of the FAA. But are you saying if people were to develop on airport land?
No, I'm thinking specifically Modern West, where we had an issue with the end of the runway that's not those parcels that are not owned by the airport, but the FAA says, hey, you should be looking out for this, this safety area. And I know Idaho has passed a very bipartisan legislation around airport land use for the entire state. And when I looked up land use policy in the city codes, it wasn't very specific. It was just kind of general. And I think, I would just, my train of thought is going forward, right? We don't want to obviously violate land use policy, but is Modern West going to be coming back? And is this an opportunity for the board to talk about land use policy if the city doesn't have one already?
Land use, of course, is a big part of the picture. In fact, one of the things which is outlined by the powers that be, which help provide guidance on issues like our airport is facing, is making sure that the local municipality has good land use around their airport. So it's certainly something that's been a conversation in the city. Longmont here is something we've had in front of planning. One of the first steps of that would be making sure, of course, there's things like zoning, making sure zoning is correct, making sure that within the realm you're looking at around your airport, that there's part of city code requires navigation easements and stuff like that. So yes, it's a conversation to be had. To my understanding, I don't think there's much codified currently, but to the city's credit, they, moving forward, they've been applying navigation easements, anything close to the airport. But it's a conversation to be had in the future, certainly.
I think it would be great for this board to consider looking into that going forward, especially into the new year, and then with new people possibly coming onto the board.
Thank you. Board Member Menza, that's a great question. We do actually have in section 1503.050 of our municipal code, we do have, that's the overlay zoning districts. So if you don't want to remember that string of numbers I just shared.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, yeah, 1503.050. It's also called overlay zoning districts. It covers a couple different types of overlay zones. We do have, actually the very first one is airport influence overlay. And that outlines purpose, applicability, conflicting provisions. I don't know if we have a specific map that it's attributed to, but it does speak to certain district standards. So if you or other board members are interested in learning more about that, I'd suggest start there. And then from there, we can talk to maybe our planning department about maybe getting a presentation on what that entails.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thanks.
And Chair Mr. Member Menza, the other thing that I would mention, so yeah, the airport influence zone, I think we do have a map though that shows where that.
Oh, I know we have a map. I just don't know if the map is codified in the same way.
Oh, right, yeah.
So it might be. I don't want to speak
Yeah.
out of turn on that one.
The other thing that I would mention is that I have really enjoyed working with Levi and working with you all on the Airport Advisory Board. But Levi actually belongs to the External Services Department, and so now that the new Assistant City Manager, Jen Uten, has started and kind of gotten her feet underneath her, she will be the one that is supervising Levi. She and her staff will be working with the airport more directly, and she is an expert in planning. So this is a great transition point.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and I appreciate having you here and being able to answer some of the questions that we come up with, and sometimes we don't know what to ask, but I certainly appreciate the dialogue, and thanks, Levi.
Representative Popkin.
Thank you, Chair. Now I'll make my actual comments. Let's see. I want to do that and that. All right. Got a little working list. I'll start with the less fun stuff first. So, and then we'll end on a high note here. So, first of all, as part of my duty as liaison to council, I explained either the previous meeting or the meeting before that, kind of how I approach what I communicate to council during our public meetings, as well as what I send through staff for processes like board interviews. So I did want to just note for the board, I don't want there to be any hearsay here in case this gets out. I just want to be transparent with you all. At the previous board meeting, board member Schilling raised a few questions about the interview process that AAB went through to inform its recommendations. I passed along a few concerns that were raised from the discussion there, as well as some of my own observations. Those included a lack of inclusion of not all board members being invited to participate in that process. And specifically, I believe one board member quoted that this did not feel like a fair or open process. I also relayed that there were real or perceived conflicts of interest in the interview process. Two of the members who volunteered to interview candidates were also candidates themselves. This is not necessarily a personal attack on either of the two candidates, and more a reflection of the process here, which I think was more problematic that two of those four members doing the interviews were applicants, especially when other board members were not invited to participate. If truly no one else was available, that would be a different story. There's a lack of information shared with all board members before kind of making a decision to advance a recommendation. And also just some concerns that there were concerns raised around the timing of the process, and this might be a reflection of both staff and board at the time in terms of the interview process, but frankly, I found those concerns relatively unfounded. There's always a way to make sure that information is received and circulated and invited in. So I included a little bit more detail, but it was all under those four themes, just so that the rest of my council members had information about the process here. As some of you who may have paid attention to council meetings in the past on other topics, I do think process really matters when we are going through this, and I want to make sure that the boards that I am liaison to, as well as city council, try to uphold the process as best as possible. So if you'd like more detail, I'm more than happy to talk separately without violating the Open Meetings Act, obviously. So if it's one-on-one, more than happy to shed light. Again, I don't think this is not intended to be personal against any one member. This is intended to be a reflection of kind of this interview process that hopefully the next board can learn from.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, and I think will relate to some of the governance conversations that will be coming up. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. On a more positive note on process this year, one observation that I had for the board members themselves, as well as for staff, I think there was multiple times of feedback where either from myself or from board members where there was a request for more information. And what I observed is that for the meetings that there were denser packets, where information was more available in advance, both to the public and to the board, the discussions were higher quality. And they were better. And truly, I hope going into next year, the feedback that the board was able to provide, the advice that the board was able to provide, the city council didn't always take up every single recommendation that the board made. Sometimes we disagreed. Sometimes we accepted things that the board offered. But in the situations where not only did individual board members do their own research, which I do not have a personal problem with, to be clear, and also where staff brought more information forward, the discussion was more robust and board members were able to contribute more effectively. So I just want to say thank you to most of the staff there for the preparation and to the board members for taking note of all of the information included. I think we had a couple of 30, 40-page packets for one or two meetings as well. So thank you for that. And then the last thing, two last things. I don't know if the City Council has not fully decided on the liaison roles yet. We have punted that decision 2 weeks in a row because of other things that have taken up more time. I am here kind of following through on my previous assignment for now. I did put in to continue to support the Airport Advisory Board, and I feel like I've attained an immense amount of knowledge from you all and as well from the public and from staff and from a lot of different discussions that have transpired. So I hope to continue to support the board, but you might have a new liaison come January, and I wish you all well. And then lastly, I just want to thank board member Shook for his time and dedication to the board. I know I was only on the tail end of your service here, but thank you. Any time spent here is time you're not spending elsewhere, and really is appreciated. Thank you, Sandy, as well, for your time here in the latter half of this year. And I can attest for this board that I have gotten to know the new Assistant City Manager, Jen Uten, decently. She is very capable, and I think and I can also say has already been included in some of the conversations on certain topics that we've been discussing, even if she hasn't been present at some of these meetings, courtesy of Sandy, myself, and Levi. So hopefully it'll be a relatively smooth transition. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh. Board Member Menza.
Thanks. Can I just say, Councilmember Popkin, that I hope they pick you because the airport is in your ward, and it would just seem natural. So it would just seem natural that you just remain. So I'm not letting you go. I'm going to tell the new mayor and the new council that you have to stay with us.
To be clear, that would be a motion for the board to recommend to council.
And he can't make a motion, so.
Then I make a motion.
Anything else? Anybody else? Any comments? No one? Bueller? Then I make a motion to adjourn. Anybody want a second?
Second.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you next year.
Good job, Chair Easter. Good job.
That's pretty good. Actually, I got quite a bit to do out of this one now. So.
I know, I've sent you a bunch of
Oh, good. Perfect.
Apple's been so crazy busy. I was meant to ask you if you can get me in touch with the airport manager at FNL.
Yeah, I can get you some contacts.
I talked to a couple people kind of months ago when they had they put an open house. And
Yeah.
I said, hey, you guys need like a salesperson or something. A couple of them were trying to. I'm not the person coming
Could you
in.
do me?
That person.
You got my